I am the director of Youth-Nex, the UVA Center to Promote Effective Youth Development. And I am delighted to welcome you here this morning to Charlottesville, to the University of Virginia, to the Curry School, to Youth-Nex, for our 6th conference, Youth Act, Social Justice, Civic and Political Engagement. So this is a conference overall that's near and dear to my heart. It's a conference that for those of you who've been here before, you'll know we do things a little differently. We try to have a broad sector of folks in the room to look at an issue from a variety of angles and really focused on the idea of youth as assets and positive youth development, which is really what sets our approach apart. And this particular conference is dear to my heart, in part because of recent events in Charlottesville, which will come up again and again over the next few days. And I think one narrative that hasn't come out of that as strongly as I wish it would is actually the incredible power of the youth in our community who stood up and stood for something. And so I'm hoping that this conference can further build the energy and excitement that our youth in our community have brought in making social change. And also because I've been politically active for pretty much as long as I can remember, probably in no small part due to having a mom who pinned an ERA Now button on me when I was about 6 years old. And so the idea of youth being civically and politically engaged is just part of the fabric of who I am. And I think it should be part of the fabric of all youth. And unfortunately, we don't as a society always make space for youth to engage civically in the ways that they want to and that they can. So, a few thank yous before we begin. So first, I'd like to acknowledge Altria, whose grant support supports the work of Youth-Nex, and we'd like to specifically thank Amber Roos for her assistance and support. I also want to send a big shout out to Crystal Haislip, Courtney Lazor, and Ellen Daniels, the Youth-Nex staff, who have made this possible. And everything that you see here is a result of really their hard work and dedication. So a big thanks to them. And I have a few more thank yous to do, but before we do that, I'm going to turn the podium over to our dean, Robert Pianta, who will give some opening remarks. Dean Pianta is the Dean of the Curry School of Education, Novartis U.S. Foundation Professor of Education, Professor of Psychology, and the founding director of the Center for Advanced Study of Teaching and Learning at the University of Virginia. But he's also been a wonderful supporter of Youth-Nex, and it was his sort of original idea for this center that led us to be able to bring it to fruition. His research and policy interests focus on the intersection of education and human development, and in particular, his work has been influential in advancing the conceptualization of teacher-student interactions and relationships and documenting their contributions to students' learning and development. So I'd like to welcome Dean Pianta.
Thanks, Nancy. Welcome, everyone, to UVA and the Curry School, and welcome to the 6th Annual Youth-Nex National Conference. The legacy of these gatherings, having welcomed people over the years, is unique and important to reflect on for a moment. From the beginning, as Nancy mentioned, these conferences have been a gathering place for experts across multiple sectors, researchers, practitioners, policymakers, and young people to address the challenges and opportunities presented to youth. And it's especially important that today and over the course of the next couple days, we simply don't talk about youth. I think this is one of the great values of this conference. We don't just talk about youth, but we talk with youth and spend a good amount of time listening to what they have to say. And today is another opportunity for doing that because of this unique focus of Youth-Nex. Teenagers and 20-somethings have great eagerness and capacity to take on some of our nation's and the globe's greatest challenges, I think, as we all recognize. Public education, productive economy, the environment, inequality, and a rapidly aging population. All of these will require the creativity, commitment, and decision-making talents of today's and tomorrow's youth. And we know that they are capable. The capacity of youth to tackle significant problems has been on display quite recently in the Black Lives Matter movement, in the high-tech high charter school system, and in teen-led TED Talks on topics ranging from human rights to nuclear fusion. When educators and civic leaders give teens interesting, challenging, and relevant problems to solve, time and again, they rise to that occasion. And as adults, we've created systems that at best treat youth as incomplete and at worst as threats. Teens' assets don't fit neatly into our systems, so we often don't recognize what they can accomplish. For example, what many see as the risky behavior of youth is, as most of us believe, the creativity and energy that makes them innovators. They are square pegs in the systems of round holes created by adults. Perhaps this is why we can see youth taking the lead in many of the areas we'll focus on today: social justice, civic and political engagement. These areas are often the ones where the current systems are being tested and pushed. There's a unique role that we as adults can take to help support and guide the energy and talent, creativity, and passion of youth. It isn't an easy one to navigate, as we know, but thanks to the scholarship being done in youth development and the wisdom of practitioners in the field working with teens every day and teens' voices, we have a better understanding of the role adults can and should play in supporting youth in ways that lead to their healthy civic and political engagement. And I'd be remiss today to not acknowledge the examples of this engagement we witnessed in Charlottesville this past summer and into the fall. In the face of brazen and extraordinary challenge, our students and youth stood their ground to unequivocally denounce white supremacist groups that arrived here. Many students joined our community to meet speech with speech and ultimately lead efforts to protest the white supremacists and reclaim the grounds here at UVA. And a week after seeing the worst of America on display, youth showed the very best of the country. This was one powerful example of youth standing up and showing many of the adults in our community and beyond their commitment to moral clarity. This gives me a tremendous amount of hope, but we do have work to do. Those events this summer also showed the risk we take in allowing youth to become disengaged. The promise of youth can be contrasted with also the staggering loss of human capital as we witness record dropout rates, unemployment rates, and 50% saying school, including college, is irrelevant to them, and almost half of teens showing some form of health or mental health problems. But if we get this right, which I truly believe we can, and the work of Youth-Nex is certainly leading that way, it's transformative for society and for youth. Your commitment to being here these few days is a significant part of that effort. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for your leadership. Have a good couple days.
Thank you, Dean Pianta. So before we move on with our program, I wanted to acknowledge Youth-Nex itself went through a transition this summer. So I transitioned into the role of director, and our founding director, Dr. Patrick Tolan, transitioned out of that role. So I wanted to take a moment to thank Dr. Tolan for his work. So Dr. Tolan is the Charles S. Robb Professor of Education at the University of Virginia and the Curry School of Education, as well as having an appointment in the Department of Psychiatry and Neurobehavioral Sciences in the School of Medicine. Since its inception in 2009, Tolan, as director of Youth-Nex, has championed the center's mission to promote positive youth development and enhance the potential of youth as healthy, productive citizens and to reduce developmental risk. Youth-Nex, as we mentioned, focuses on the capacities of young people in connection to health, communities, schools, and relationships, and engages over 30 faculty members from all across the university. And it was really Dr. Tolan's vision for this center and the work that he did over the last 8 years to turn Youth-Nex into a really leading voice in the positive youth development movement across the country. Himself, for over 30 years, Dr. Tolan's conducted research with multiple collaborators on youth living in high-risk communities and has supported efforts to assist and protect healthy development of families. He's been the principal investigator on multiple funded projects and has authored over 160 publications. And his research has shed light on how neighborhoods affect risk for school failure, delinquency, and mental health problems, as well as the amazing capacity of youth for healthy development. And so I'd like to take a moment to thank Dr. Tolan, who's been not only a wonderful director of Youth-Nex, leader of Youth-Nex, but also a fabulous mentor for those of us, other faculty, junior faculty in the center who have come up under him to make the center what it is today. So please join me in thanking Dr. Tolan. And I also want to note, Pat, you don't have to come up. We will put this back here, but we have framed for you a set of images from all 6 of the Youth-Nex conferences. And we are going to put this in the back. We're going to take the glass off it, and there'll be a pen back there for anyone who would like to sign the mat to thank Dr. Tolan for his leadership and vision of Youth-Nex over the years. So this will be in the back over the course of the day, and during a break, please feel free to stop by and sign it. It is my pleasure now to introduce the co-chairs of this year's conference, Dr. Valerie Adams-Bass and Dr. Chauncey Smith. Dr. Adams-Bass is an assistant professor of education at the Curry School and a faculty member of Youth-Nex. Her research examines the relationships of racial socialization and racial identity with the developmental processes, social and academic outcomes of Black children and youth. And she is particularly interested in how Black adolescents interpret negative media stereotypes and whether the messages presented are internalized or buffered as a result of racial socialization experiences. She's also interested in research-informed, culturally relevant professional development for practitioners who work with African American youth and families. Dr. Smith is assistant professor of education and also a faculty member of Youth-Nex. His research is centered on Black adolescent socio-political development in school and after-school program contexts. He examines the ways in which Black adolescents recognize, analyze, and respond to oppression in their environments. He also employs an intersectional approach to exploring Black adolescent school experiences across racial, class, and gender identities. And this conference is really a result of their combined vision and leadership. And so I would like to welcome them to provide some introductory remarks to frame the rest of the conference.
Good morning. I need more than that. Good morning. Woo! All right. Welcome to Charlottesville. Welcome to UVA. Thank you to Dean Pianta and Dr. Deutsch for their warm welcomes. I want to also thank Dr. Deutsch, Ellen Daniels, Crystal Hayslip, and Courtney Lazor for their awesome work in helping to get this. This is a monstrous undertaking, but it's a beautiful monster. It's an exciting monster. It's a labor of love. So we just want to say thank you to those folks for really being champions by our side. Both Dr. Bass and I are so grateful to them. So as we get started, there will be some logistical notes that we'll share throughout. So there is still a little bit of breakfast in the back. Restrooms are off to the side, I believe, back that way to the left. On both sides, actually. See, thank you. She's still. We have that set. Also, you have the hashtag on your table as a tent. And here we go. I want to share a couple of things to kind of keep us grounded in why we're here. All right, so we've talked about how important and how exciting this conference is because we bring a lot of different voices to the room, right? So we're bringing activists and policy folks and educators and students and researchers and all these really great, brilliant, talented folks. But of course, we also bring a very, very important, we're talking about youth development, we also bring another voice to the table. And what do you think that voice is? Louder? Youth. Y'all are more participatory than some of my classes, so I appreciate you. Thank you. So we bring youth to the table, and I think it's so important in youth development work sometimes, even with the best intentions and even with the greatest systems, sometimes we can always be doing harder work to keep youth centered in our efforts. So what I'm going to ask for the youth in the room today to do is to hold us accountable to keeping you centered in the conversation. So if you hear something and there's an opportunity for question, an opportunity for conversation, whether it's at the Q&A in the session or in some informal conversations and breaks and at lunch, we ask that you hold us accountable to keeping you centered, because this is about you. Youth act, so we want to support you in your acting. Okay. Finally, this is more of a personal note. So at the end of each day, I'll be leading what is called a call to action. And so that comes from a tradition of we've processed a lot of information, we've thought through a lot of different things, we have all these brilliant ideas that we're writing down in our journals that we're sharing. So I want to give you a 30-minute slot of time to kind of focus that energy, and we're going to collaborate collectively on synthesizing some of these ideas and thinking through solutions or getting some things started. Okay? So you do not have to worry. At the end of the day, I will not give a 30-minute sermon on how we need to act, because that would only serve me and not serve the purpose of the conference. So at that time, you'll be collaborating with your table. So I want you to save some energy, put some in your reserves, because that's what we'll be doing at the end. Alrighty? And those moments will be interactive also, so be ready to speak, be ready to text things, tweet things, all those things, okay? So now I want to introduce my fantastic colleague, Dr. Valerie Adams-Bass.
Good morning. How are you today? Awesome. Only one person is awesome. Well, hopefully by the end of this morning and this afternoon, we'll all be feeling awesome. We'll be riveted and ready to get to this call of action. Chauncey was so wonderful in finessing the homework that you don't have to take home, but you'll spend 30 minutes doing here and now. So I want to echo the thank yous infinitely to everyone who has made this possible, for all of you for coming, for getting up early. I am not a morning person. Many people know that, although I have an 18-month-old toddler who reminds me I have to be a morning person these days. So I just want to share with you a couple logistics, but before I get there, I want to thank, again, all of you for being here. Come with open minds, come with open mouths, but if you have something to say, one of our housekeeping is to raise your hand, and we have a volunteer who will wonderfully float across the room and bring you the mic, because we do want to hear what you have to say. We want to make sure others hear what you have to say. We also have at your table, oftentimes when I go to conferences, I'll say something like, do you have a Wi-Fi password? Is there a Wi-Fi password? Do we have to pay for the Wi-Fi? You do not have to pay for the Wi-Fi. On your tables, if you haven't found it already, each person has an individual sheet of paper with a Wi-Fi. It will be good for you today and tomorrow. Each of you will have an individual code, so don't you lose your code and don't share your code, because if you share, you lose, you lose. So there's your free Wi-Fi, and you can save your own time if you don't have infinite time on your Wi-Fi password. So that's important information to share with you. Chauncey covered the bathrooms. Again, raise your hand if you have a question. Each panel has an opportunity for you to do that. And then, of course, our hashtag is YouthAct17. So we're not only interested in what you act, but your action, your activity, and your passion. So that goes for the young people who are in the room as well as the adults. I like to say that when I work with young people, it keeps the gray hair at bay. If you get close, you'll notice that I haven't been working with young people as often. So I'm so glad to see you in the room. Help me pull back these gray hairs. So those are the sort of logistics that I do want to share with you. And last but not least, I want to say, be ready to roll up your sleeves, to roll back your inhibitions, and just to really talk about all of these things that you're going to hear today. Ask questions. I honestly, truly believe no question is a dumb question. Come up with fantastic ideas. Start to put those ideas into action. Let's generate the type of energy that will carry you beyond your next 2 days here in Charlottesville. We welcome you. We're excited to have you. If you've been here before, enjoy everything you've done. Check out what's new if you haven't been here before. Explore, explore, explore. As someone with a cooperative extension background, one of our national mandates was healthy living. So when you need to get up and stand up, we won't be offended if you're sitting too long. Please get up and stand up. Take your bathroom break as needed because we want you to be healthy. Right? We want you to take care of yourself as well as be engaged in what you're going to hear today. Just excited to have such a multidisciplinary group of people here and such a diverse age range of people in the room to participate and not just sit and listen to us or those on the panel at this conference. So thank you. Welcome, 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 and let's get started.